I think part of the goal of the cover today is try to figure out what does it mean to be a modern witch, and discuss this with everybody here in the panels, right? So we're going to do is identity. I'm going to start with you guys here. We have an East Coast, West Coast vibe happening, right?
Absolutely.
So in the East Coast, West Coast vibe, here's the question. To what extent is witchcraft integral to your identity, and how is that impacted by your regions from East Coast to West Coast? How does it do that for you guys? Who will take that first?
Okay, I will start. Since I'm the West Coast, I'm representing every witch on the West Coast. Yes. We have a West Coast vibe. How many of you guys are here from West Coast, San Diego, LA? Yeah, we have our own different vibe to us. And I have a little bit even of an extra one because I'm in Hollywood and I work in the entertainment industry. So I think being a witch in Hollywood gives us a little more licensing to just weirdly sparkle a little more, if that makes sense. Plus, we're a more liberal state, so we don't have to hide as much as, sadly, they have to do in some states. It's not me, it's not what I do, it's just who I'm being. It's who I am every hour of the day. When I wake up, I do witchy things with my coffee. When I go to work, when I go work out, to me, it's all about empowerment, which it is for witches in general, and taking our power back, which is my big gig about everything. And I'm just mostly thankful for being on the West Coast because, again, I do believe we have some freedoms that maybe some in the center of the country doesn't.
As you did. Jason, what are your thoughts on these?
I wanted to ask a question real quick first. How many people in the audience identify as a witch? Awesome. Okay. Pops. So
They call it witch.
I've been a West Coast. I lived in LA for a while. I lived in Salem, Massachusetts for a while, complete opposite, and currently on the cusp of the Midwest in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, sort of this weird no man's land of Appalachia mixed with blue collar steel mill vibe. And it's been my experience that each region, you sort of absorb the energy and the vibe. We were talking about it just outside of the doors here today about how it's so laid back down here, like we did this Comicon in New York City a few months ago back in October. And you get the New York hustle, everything's fast-paced and larger. And so witchcraft is a reflection of the environment. So you absorb these things, right? So when I was in Salem, you get that crusty New England vibe, And when I lived in Florida, you get that kind of southern vibe. And in Pittsburgh, it's sort of that amalgam. So I've identified as a witch since the 1980s, and I've moved around the country, and I think that we're kind of sponges, and we absorb where we're at, and we put that back out into the world.
That's great. Judy.
Okay, so I'm Judy Ann Nock, for those of you who don't know me, and I am a card reading, rune casting, crystal gazing, candle gazing, broom riding, spell casting, herb growing witch. And I flew in from the East Coast. Do we have any East Coasters here? I'm right here. New Witch City. Yes, my first time at Comicon International. And I am loving the California vibe, but it is very different. It's very, very different. One thing that I will say that I feel like really kind of like distinguishes like the New York City down and dirty witchcraft is we tend to be like a little like territorial sometimes in terms of locale. Like people really like to stake their territory, and you have like, the witch of New York City, and I wouldn't call myself that because there's some other people already calling themselves that. Witchcraft is sometimes centered around retail a little bit. We're a really diverse group of people, and so our expression tends to vary so much. When I first moved to New York City in the 1990s, there was a shop called Magical Child, and a lot of the magical community was centered around that. And then there was Enchantment's Grove, which is still active today, but it's interesting that there's been this intersection with commerce in the city, because a lot of witchcraft is about honoring nature and being in tune with the spirits of nature. And in the city, you'd be surprised that I get more of that than you might think. And we have lots and lots of peculiarities, like little psychic shops. I'm never really sure what those are about, but I did see one in San Diego, and it was like immensely familiar. It was immensely familiar. So I do see like some similarities and a lot of differences as well.
It feels good.
It does. It's wonderful to be here.
Reverend Starr, though.
Yes. And we still are identifying, right, about as to how we identify with it. Okay, sounds great. And I'm from the East Coast as well, New York City. Well, technically. I'm Canadian originally, and Trini, and then New York. So I was the one before with the Canuck part that were going there, yeah, you know, and kind of. And I even went out and followed him to get the poster where the Canuck is like chastising the president. I'm like, give me that. Okay, so I held on to that. But anyways, aside from that, in terms of identity and witchcraft, I am a witch. I'm nothing else. There are many terms and names for what people want to call themselves in modern day witchcraft, and they can do so. That's their choice, because it's really a personal thing. I think I identify with it in the sense of, just like a Christian does or a Catholic does, they identify with it and they live it, they breathe it, and everything else. That's me. I am that witch. I do not see myself as Wiccan, because that's a term that the modern witches are calling themselves, and all it means is the word just simply means more than one witch. Please identify and know that. That's what it means, nothing more. And so when people call themselves Wiccan, I'm like, good for you, thank you. And I move on from there. But I call myself and identify only as a witch. And I'm happy to be that, I'm proud of that. I just think that people need to do a little bit of research. I don't think people do that. They tend to follow along. And I tell them, I'm not giving them a name. I just say they follow things that they think is a certain way. And I think people need to start learning how to do, I don't mean Google. I know Google is everyone's best friend, but Google is not your research and AI is not your research. Pretend you're in college and go to the books that carry those things, like maybe a university textbook that has information, and you will see the word actually saying, Wicca, more than one witch. That is all it means originally. If people would do that, then they will at least know where they stand and what they can identify as without reading books that kind of, I'm not going to say anything further.
You're doing great.
I'm just saying, please do your proper research so you would know how to identify what and who you are, so you can say to people, this is what I am, okay? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's talk about pop culture for a second, right? What is your opinion on how witchcraft is represented today in pop culture? Start, Patty.
Me? Okay, we'll take turns starting, because it's always fun to be the first person. Well, it's getting better, I must say. Finally, I mean, it's not perfect by any close, but at least witches don't constantly just have to either be the evil old hag or the sexy, scary siren, because that's all we got to be before. There's no depth to witches, even if you're looking from Agatha all along, or even what Charmed did. But again, there's still some tropes we've got to get past, a lot of things in media. But again, there is starting to improve it. I've actually done consulting on some shows and films, and it's really nice when they let you give some real stuff. And then they'll throw in something weird. It just happens, but it's really nice for a lot of reasons. One reason that people don't understand, and I try to tell it because I work with a lot of YouTubers and social media, everybody could have a TV show, you know, in a sense. And being careful what you put online, especially because I'm very much in that paranormal world. If you're doing some kind of a chant or some kind of a spell working, be careful what you're saying, because that 12-year-old or the 25-year-old on the other side doesn't quite get it. So I've had to correct things from a true story I did, where somebody actually caught on fire at Marilyn Manson's house during one of my seances. The screenwriter wrote a movie about it. It was Stephen Norrington, the guy who wrote League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But I sat down with them for 5 hours going, you can't say that in a movie. You can't have the actor say that. Well, why not? You said that. I know, but this is a horror film. You don't want to be one of those cursed horror films, do you? It happens all the time. Look at all those old horror films that, the actors die at 27 and stuff. So we change the words to make them, especially if it's fiction versus, your YouTube channel for young witches in love. Don't you have you seen that one? So there's just a big responsibility to it in media. Hollywood's getting better, but there's a long way to go. That's what I see, living in the middle of it.
And literally today, as opposed to 20 years ago, you see a lot more witch representations
Yes.
all over Baltimore.
Every show has a witch staff, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's partially because there's more people identifying as witches and more people out of the broom closet, as it were. So more people are holding the folks in Hollywood accountable for that, right? If they're calling them out on their BS, if you're just leaning into these lazy tropes that have been around for so long. I would agree with Patti that in overall, I think it's getting better. But entertainment, media, it's sensationalized. That's the nature of it, right? It's entertainment. I have hundreds of witch friends. I don't necessarily want to watch what they do in their daily life for a half hour. We're not all that interesting. Like some of us are, but the reality of people that identify as witches is like that's how we integrate into everything we do, from the food we make to the way we treat nature and so I guess what I'm getting at is it's understandable that it would be sensationalized a little bit, but I think that it's important to like Starr said, do your research. If you see something that seems off or seems like, oh, well, that's cool, just research it a little bit, and there's probably a nugget of truth, and then there's probably, some producer who said, oh, that's great, but we need more explosions, or we need fire coming out of the fingers, because it's you're selling something, or you're selling entertainment.
Judy?
Oh, yeah. So some of the ways that I see witchcraft represented, I think back to like movies from the 70s, like The Wicker Man, where it was very much about like sex and violence. And then I think about like movies like The Craft, which was more like supernatural, and Blair Witch Project, like horror. A lot of it is horror. And a lot of like, if I look at what is kind of like presented to kids, it's always the trope of the evil witch, the evil witch, the evil witch. And I feel like words are important. So I would love to counter that narrative, right? Because people are complex, and I'm sure that came from something, but I'm pretty sure that it came from a fear of women's power. That's what I think it is. That's why witches get represented as ugly, right? Because a woman in power is threatening the patriarchal structure, so it has to be evil, it has to be ugly, so that we can feel good about shunning it, and that we can feel okay about persecuting women. One thing that's interesting, I want to go back just a little bit because I had this thought about the whole East Coast, West Coast thing. And I love being here in California. I'm not sure like what the practice is like, but historically, New York was a haven for witches, and not just witches, but women and people who were accused of witchcraft in the 1600s would flee. And one of the most interesting things I saw recently was a Wall Street Journal article on the Etsy witches who are crafting and selling spells online. And one of them was from like New Canaan, Connecticut. I said, well, isn't that kind of perfect? Like the Wall Street Journal is reporting on Connecticut witches kind of establishing their practice through this new online platform. And I just found it fascinating. Like, we are still functioning as like this haven for witchcraft.
This is so cool. It's very Reverend Starr. What do you?
I think all of what they said, plus additionally, there's a few things. I think good, bad, or indifferent, it kind of brought a lot of things to the forefront. People started waking up and thinking of things on their own. I think that's one of the reasons why it's the largest growing religion that's existing right now on its own. Whether you practice as a solitary or with different traditions, I don't care what tradition you're with, you're still solitary by yourself at home practicing. So it's growing in its own way, whatever form it takes. I think that, yes, there's been a lot of negative things, but just like with anything else, when they make any movie of any genre, what they do is entertainment to exaggerate something, to entertain you and keep you coming back for more, like old John Wick. You know, I mean, I love him killing everybody. It's awesome. I enjoy that so much. You have no idea. But anyways, that's just a part of it. But for entertainment, there's also a lot of people who did research. The movie Charmed, the series Charmed, they did a lot of research. There was one in particular where they went back in time and they had to go back to their ancestors and learn things. There was no theatrics then. They had to learn from scratch. A basil leaf put across at the point at the door is protection and all those things. That's research. And they were being taught that. And so somebody said to them, research your topics for real and say what real witches do. And there's a lot of kernels of that throughout the series. So I thought that was brilliant. The gentleman from before with the canoe thing from before, I forgot he mentioned something, and it brought to mind, in Canada, there was a series called Friday the 13th. Now, this was before your whatchamacallit guy with the 13th thing. Before him, okay? So this was a series that was brought, this pissed me off like hell. There's a lot of Canadian shows that were fantastic. We never saw it in Toronto. They just brought it here and gave it to you guys, which was pissy. But I bought the series, and when you go through the series, amazing research. They did their research. They had one on voodoo. You saw original footage of complete voodoo ceremonies with every sigil, everything done, research to hell. Witches, same thing. So they, as much as they're doing the entertainment, they're also showing you so much footage. If you buy the series or you see the series, go look at it. I kid you not. The amount of history and information that you could garner from that series, which I'm, again, still pissed that they did that to us, but you will enjoy it and you will learn a lot from it. So there are good and bad in everything, but it does teach us things, though, that, you know what? We entertained you with it. Now go to hell and do your damn research the way the students do. It's just telling you, you know, this is just for entertainment, but do that. Kind of like with John Wick, like how I love it, you know, kind of like that. So it's just little things like that that you have to think of and just see it for the good that it is, right? I mean, it entertains us, right?
It does.
Okay, that's my
Look around the room, right? All the different people that are here, all the different representations that are here, all the different cultures, right?
Yeah.
The icon of the witch, it crosses all cultures. There's something new, but here just even interested in what's going on up here. So I ask this, how do you feel about the topics such as appropriation, syncretism, or potential threats to our religious freedoms today in today's polarized social climate?
Yeah, I'm going to give Patty a break. I know. That's okay. I'm going to jump in because that's a really tough one. And as an author, that's something that I come up across a lot. And it is very, very difficult because eclecticism and syncretism is so prolific. It started thousands of years ago when human beings figured out how to leave land and travel, and there was cultural exchange, there was exchange of ideas, there was exchange of food, clothing, tradition, music, and magic. So we will see like systems of magic that started in like in the north, in the like northern Germanic regions, then they show up in the British Isles, and then we see the Mediterranean traditions creep their way west, and people get protective of their culture even as they want to share it. And when I'm writing about this, I feel like I have to be so sensitive so that when I present information, I'm trying to present it with historical accuracy without claiming to be the source of that information. So one of the things that was really, really challenging to me, I wrote a book on magical herbs. And there is a tradition in hoodoo for root work. I am not from that tradition. I do not practice that tradition. But for me to not mention it feels like erasure. For me to include it feels like appropriation. So these are things that like I wrestle with greatly. And some of my critics have spoken out about that, like, oh, she included this part and she shouldn't be talking about that because, you know, that's a closed practice. And to that I say, I'm not instructing people how to do it, but I'm saying that it exists and it's important to know about, and I cannot leave it out and call myself an author. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Want to go around and keep circling?
Oh, okay. For me, again, I'm going to be slightly. I'll defend Judy with that certain part because I think she has the right to do that in terms of putting in that parts of what she knows. Because again, Judy is one of the authors that I know of that actually does her research. Then you see her books. But it's the truth. I'm not going to say it otherwise. You know me like that. I will just not say anything rather than say it.
She would say it.
Oh, we've grown to know that you will say it.
But some of the things that I think people, from my point of view, okay, it's scientifically, researchers have said most everything came out of Africa.
Yes.
If people traveled and were born or birthed the cradle of life from Africa, and they got put to wherever different parts of the world, they are going to take some of what they are to those cultures, and whatever areas of land they become part of will also ingrain part of that. So no matter what, they're culturally appropriating and taking that shit with them. It's ingrained in them. So that's what my point of view is with it. So when people speak, I'm not African American or foundational Black American, so I understand where they're coming from with it, because politically, the constructs of the word, well, every word is a construct, but you know what I mean, of the word appropriation and culturally and all the different things, are people holding on, in my mindset, to this constancy of racism and the races and all the different things, and I'm sitting there going, okay, my great-grandmother who looked blonde and blue-eyed, that means I should just say, you don't touch that shit, that grandma, because you look a certain way. You know, I'm like, okay, but look at me. You know, we all look different. I have an aunt who's blonde and blue-eyed, and she lives in England, and she will stand there and listen to white people say certain things, and then she'll turn on them, and the way she cussed them out, they're like, okay, we know you're Black. You know, because she went from looking this person to this person that said certain things, and they're like, okay, we will keep our mouth shut. But I'm just saying, in general, if something calls to you, because if in certain witches or whoever we are, that who believes in reincarnation? That means how many times we think we've been here on this planet, what gender, what race, whatever it is. How are we culturally appropriating? I'm just asking. From the heart, I'm asking, as if I'm dumb. How are we culturally appropriating something that could be back in our history, our ancestral? I'm just asking. But fine, if they want to put up all the constructs and they want to separate, and I understand where it's coming from. Because if you have been put down, stepped on, kneed on for so long, at some point you just kind of say, let me have something that you don't touch.
Yes.
So I understand where it's coming from. But all to me that it's doing is perpetuating more and more and more. And from the person standing from the outside watching it, it is extremely exhausting. So I'm just saying, she's saying again, she's not writing it from the perspective of I'm practicing it, but to exclude it, kind of like Friday the 13th series, they did everything. They went on everybody's thing, from high magic, witchcraft, voodoo, hoodoo, they did everything. Because again, what were they doing? Appropriating? No. They were showing different, because Friday the 13th was based on what you call it? What was that shop? It It was some sort of a magic shop, and he did satanic magic, and he to become rich, and so every object in his store was cursed. So his family, to be able to get away from being cursed, had to put back every object and bring it back to his store that was sold. So for them to do it, of course, they're going to go through different people and cultures of who has that magical object that they have to bring back. Again, you got to go see those series. You would love it. You would fall in love with the series. But they covered every genre that you could think of. Okay, so when it's kind of like, if you think about it in another sense, forget witchcraft for a second. Okay, just in general, Christian nationalism, Beth Methodist, and all the other names they give their names, I don't know what, it's all Christian to me, right? It all looks the same to me from the outside. But they all have their traditions, right? Do you think they're sitting there going, that's my tradition, okay? You can't say the Jesus Bible or whatever it is they're saying. I don't know what else they say. I read the Bible as a book from top to back kind of a thing, and that's all I saw. But I'm just saying from their perspectives as ministers, they each come up with their own version of what it is. Is that a cultural appropriation among the Christians? I'm just wondering for a friend. Because it's just like, you gotta wonder, if they're not doing it from their perspective with all their races going on, they're like, you're not taking from me. Or, for instance, the ones where they go to the churches and they sing a lot. They used to scare the shit out of me as a kid, but they get up and they start jumping around. Scared the shit out of me. But when I've heard people say, well, when I go to the black churches and they start doing that, oh, I love that. I should take that to my church. Are they culturally appropriating? I'm just asking again for that same friend.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Would you like to touch us?
Hi. Yes. Again, I agree with both of them. They've well spoken. We do. And I love the reincarnation. I just wrote a book about dolls because I'm a doll collector. But half of it is about haunted dolls to fit into my paranormal world, of which I'm an expert on haunted dolls. And half of it's about magical puppets for my witchy world, how to do puppets. I did so much research on this because dolls have been in both the haunted side, the magical side, in every culture. So I wasn't going to claim how they do that. I'm an expert on how they do them in Japan or China or Africa, but I had to do my research. This is what it was done here, and this is how it was done, and then people can take their own. But we do. And I love that you brought the reincarnation, because when I'm doing all this research, it's like, I do believe in reincarnation. It's like, oh yeah, I did that before, but not in this lifetime, but another lifetime, and maybe I was in India somewhere. So I agree.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, I agree as well, and I'm glad you brought up the reincarnation thing because I've often thought of that as well. How could you
Ask you for that friend.
I mean, but the concept of closed practices is relatively new to me. I'll be honest. I'm probably within the witch talk era is when I first started hearing some pushback on that, and so rather than stand up, I was like, okay, this is a chance to listen and learn and hear what folks are pissed about, and maybe they got a point, and then maybe it's too extreme. I don't know, but I find that a lot of it, if you approach it with reverence, if you approach just with respect and citation, I think that's a big part of it. If say you're writing a book and you put something out that you're just borrowing from another culture, if I would be pissed about that too. If you weren't saying where your sources are, where did you get this from? So it's a touchy subject, and I think at the end of the day, what drew me to witchcraft as a kid was how eclectic it was that it was borrowing from these different cultures, and it wasn't so rigid as the versions of Christianity that I grew up with. So I'm a work in progress, and I'm always trying to learn and be respectful. And I think that's probably the best we can do, is just really be respectful of it, But at the same time, when someone on TikTok says, "Oh, you can't burn incense," I'm like, okay, wait a second. That's a bit far for me, I'm sure the folks in India who I bought the incense from would beg to differ. They probably want to sell it to me for my rituals. So common sense in the middle, I don't know.
Common sense, that's the big word.
And compassion and
That's
empathy.
not so common. Common sense is not so now.
But you touched on this up earlier. What he said, East Coast, really back in the day, right? They would burn the witches, right? Salem, New York, all these things. And those
Well,
become-
I just want to correct one misconception. In this country, the witches were not burned. That was Scotland. Here, sadly, they were hung. They were hung.
So thinking about that, people did these things to the witches based off of misconceptions or stereotypes, right?
Yes.
And they did because they thought witches were what? Possibly evil. Witches were going to do what? Maybe get a piece of your hair, curse you for the rest of your life, or kill your animals, or do whatever they're going to do. All stereotypical, right? How has the stereotypes of witch affected you, babies?
Nice. Who wants to start first this time?
He's pointing at me, so. I like it when I start first. I have more time to think about it. I think of this one example real quick of my next door neighbor who came over to me last year. We were out on my back porch having a beer, and he was like, maybe I should just ease up on the witchcraft stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you're not a witch. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, wow, this is news to me. I've been doing this for 3 decades. But what he was saying in his, ignorance, it wasn't coming from a bad place. It was just, he thought I was under the delusion that I was like the fantastic stuff you would see in the movies. And as rad as that would be, the reality of it is it's more a part of a reverence for nature for me. It's more of a religion for me. It's more of a way of resetting my mindfulness. So I took that as an educational opportunity, but the stereotype, it's a loaded word, right? If you identify as something that has centuries attached to it, you got to have the cojones to stand up for it and say, well, okay, I respect why you're coming to me, but here's how I look at it, and here's why you're incorrect, just like you did. They didn't. Yeah. Burn witches. That's a big trope, Burn the witches. You hear that in music a lot. It's just like, okay, let's just start by educating people on that level, and
Pass them on. Judy?
I just want us to move past the use of the word witch as an insult.
Yeah.
That when someone says, that witch, you think of something else. You think of something else besides the stereotype, that it should make you wonder more than it should make you. Yeah.
Very, very standard. Patty?
I think, again, yes, we have the stereotypes and we all know, and yes, witch should be, what a witch. Oh, what a witch, that's empowerment. Yeah. That's somebody in their power. That's somebody who takes responsibility for themselves, for the world. They don't give responsibility to something else. But I think the best way we can fight it as witches is just be our authentic self. I am the weird witch next door in Hollywood. My neighbor, I have a little goofy sign outside, but just being your best you is how we fight it. I'm not going to fit into all those weird stereotypes. Some of us I will. We're all up here wearing black. Yes, indeed. It's slimming. I think it's about authenticity, which is what we are about, I believe, one of the things of it as being witches.
Reverend Starr?
Yes.
About 15 minutes left. Can we get an elevator pitch on this one?
So in terms of stereotypical things, people are going to do that anyways. They have stereotype people constantly with everything. And I think that's part of, we're watching a lot of it politically. They do it to be able to say to others so that they can, either separate themselves or be able to belittle them or be able to do it and think that they, can get away with it. Part of it is ignorance, lack of knowledge, and don't tell me if you have a PhD that you could stand there and say some of the things that Jason just said, some of them do say, and they're standing right there. So you're thinking, okay, you're educated, you should know certain things or know, at least do your research. Again, people don't research. They would listen to someone else sell them something, and then that's it. That's the gospel right there, and they will run with that. So again, I would ask people to do their own research. One stereotype they have is they love to think that we worship Satan.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it because it's a big deal to me because, well, it's not really because I give, your kids any here? 0. Anyway. I don't care what people think or say. That's their choices. They can live that way. Ignorance is not bliss. It's just that ostrich with the butt up in the air and the head in the sand. I get butt. Anyways, so I'm just saying they believe that we worship Satan. It's something they created so they can hold on tightly to him and empower him as much as they keep talking, because that's what they're doing. All the other religions that mention the word Satan, it's a thought form and they're empowering it. And it's one of the largest thought form on the planet because all these religions give it that power. We don't.
We don't.
So when they say it to me, I'm like, no, honey, that's yours. Just you keep it. Hold on to it.
But you don't know how to say.
You know, it's not mine. Okay? So, yeah.
There are satanic witches.
I did.
Yes, there are satanic witches, but that's their thing, and that's okay. You know, and they have the right, and again, they're different traditions, but they will tell you straight up, we are Satan, and I don't think they even say satanic witches, they just say satanics.
Yeah.
They don't say witches with it,
Yeah.
because it's a, what's the word? It's an oxymoron.
And most Satanists don't really believe in Satan.
That's what I mean, you know, so it's like they just need to educate themselves on what it's almost like they laugh, a lot of Satanists that I know, it's almost like they're laughing at people, that's why they say we are Satanists. Because they know you're gonna think a certain thing. They know you're gonna run with whatever it is and not do your research. So they pull on your chains with it, and that's okay. They're allowed to do that because, again, lack of education and research.
I want to put these two together because they're pretty much same level-ish, right? Music, movies, books, television, all together, right? What is the influence of your witchcraft in those areas, those spaces, music, movies, books, television? Yeah, you just do it.
Okay, I will start. Well, again, those are all art forms, and to me, art forms are, again, working that creative brain, the right brain, the intuitive brain, the magic. So I think, not that saying musicians and actors and books and music are all witchy, but the creative. I work with a lot of artists, I work with a lot of musicians and things. Music is one of the finest forms of magic out there. Creativity is magic in itself. So to me, they're just like two hands in a glove.
No.
That was good, that's perfect, that's what I put to.
Yeah, I'll keep it short, because I know.
Musically speaking, I'm in a band called Icarus Witch, and we've been around for over 20 years, and it was formed with the intention of presenting some positive pagan, influences in music, because I grew up listening to like Ozzy, R.I.P., I got my friend John today. He's singing about Mr. Crowley, and I was like, it's cool, but then you listen to the context, and it was anti, So it was a stepping off point. It inspired me. But I said, well, I want to present music and lyrics and imagery for pagans as I know them, which are beautiful people that have reverence for nature and magic. And I mean, writing a song in itself is a spell. It's pulling something out of the ethers and creating it and producing it and influencing people and how it makes them feel. So I think that the two are inseparable. I mean, I grew up being inspired by the witchier side of music, Stevie Nicks and people that weren't really necessarily witches, but really got me lured into the darker vibe, and it's been a beautiful path for me.
I went to a Stevie Nicks concert and I never blended so hard in my life. I felt so seen. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
As far as putting books, music, movies, all that together is it's a little overwhelming. But, you think of some of the biggest rock acts like Led Zeppelin definitely had that affinity with Crowley. Kenneth Anger also had a big influence on rock and roll. I'm a musician as well, and witchcraft absolutely affects my inspiration. And when I think about popular books, popular movies. One of the things that I find is really, really interesting is in kind of pop culture. And this convention is a celebration of pop culture and a lot of it with entertainment. How in the East Coast, West Coast thing, we had Broadway shows, right? And sometimes they would inspire movies, and they would make a movie about a Broadway show. So we had New York and Hollywood kind of working together. And then at some point in my life, it completely flipped right? Where then we were making Broadway shows out of popular movies. And one of my favorite musicals, Wicked, is now becoming a movie. So it's like flipping back again. But what's really interesting to me is not only is like the pendulum swinging the other way, but we're getting like these backstories, like looking at like why Elphaba is the way she is. Is there more depth to this? Is there more to this? And I love the musicals and the movies because they explored that. And I think they got it pretty good. Like, she was talented. She was like a natural, talented witch. They couldn't cast the spells. She could. Today in celebration, I bought this beautiful pentagram today, and I didn't realize at the time that I bought it from someone who was like licensing designs from the Dresden Files, and somehow I completely missed that. And I got scared, like, oh, is this like an evil witch thing? Am I representing a villain? Google, Google, Google. But I put on a serial killer lanyard without thinking twice about it. Oh yeah, serial killer, let's go. Woo. But I was still like, I was very concerned about how this was being represented in books and television and movies. So it did affect me today. I like my
I think we're kind of condensing it down into all of that, the music and all of that. You take time. For the music part, I think it's just creates a euphoria with everyone, with whatever religion they are, from the Baptist to whatever it is. They all do their, what they call it, catch the power, or whatever they call it in the Christian religion, where they all get up and dance. For us as witches, it's always been part of our nature. It creates that euphoria, that spirit, and everything else with us. We watch it with people with different genre and traditions and everything else, and it just feels great for them, and they leave there feeling empowered. And so to me, music in general does the empowering. In terms of movies and stuff like that, and again with the music combined, please watch the movie Sinners. The scene with the ancestors and the music and that boy singing, and you saw all the ancestors coming by and everything else. Amazing. Amazing. Now that alone, if you watched it, that whole scene combines everything they just said as to why music means so much to us in terms of everything else. So if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about with that. In terms of books, right. In terms of books, please do not just go out. I told Judy I was going to say this part. Do not just go out and buy books by authors without first educating yourselves on where they're getting their information from. Because just because someone wrote a book does not mean they know what they are talking about. That's right. Okay? I could go write a book on being an astronaut, but I am not an astronaut. Does not mean I know the shit about it, okay? I'm just saying, okay? And a lot of it are regurgitated crap from someone who wrote it back in the 80s, and he wrote one thing, and I watched every single author put the same information, and I'm like, did any of you research that this thing is wrong? It's so inaccurate that the minute I see it, I put their books down, and I'm like, I'm done. You did not do your research with this, so I can't read your book. Okay? It's regurgitated, or what I call slightly pagering, so stop. Please know who they are, educate yourselves on who they are, and if they're a person who does their research. Just saying. Okay, I think that was it.
Very last question. We only got 4 minutes at this point, so I want to make sure each one of you get a minute in here. How can witchcraft make a positive impact on today's world? Patty.
Well, number one, we are very earth-aware, planet-aware, environment-aware, take responsibility for our lives and what we do. We can't get forgiven by somebody in a little fool or something. We take responsibility for ourselves. So I think our lifestyle, we are activists in just our way of being. It's a responsibility thing. I will keep it short. I know we're in a hurry. Okay, go.
I'm a priest of the Cabot tradition, which was founded by Laurie Cabot in Salem, Massachusetts. And one of the reasons I was drawn to that tradition is she basically inspires everybody to go out and be active in your community and be influential and put out a good public face. So for me, that was like right now I work for an animal sanctuary, vegan-run, pagan-owned, woman-owned animal sanctuary called Misfits Cup, misfitscup.org. And that, to me, fits in so neatly with my spiritual beliefs of reverence for nature, of harm none, including the animals. Like we rescue cows from slaughter, and it's just putting your money where your mouth is. So I think that's what I love about the religion, is you can customize it to yourself, and you can really put it out there and have your own brand.
Well said. Judy?
Think globally and act independently. Recycle, compost, conserve, do what you can. It does have an impact. It does have an impact.
For me, people are not going to like what I say because right now in this world, the way it is, people don't like to take accountability. People do not like to accept responsibility for their actions or anything. They'll definitely pass it on to someone else, and it's okay. That's what they want to do. So for me, we are empowered with the planet and how we take care of it. And if we don't start learning how to take accountability and as responsible human beings on this place that we are basically guests on this planet, and if we do not learn to take those responsibility and be accountable for what we personally do, I'm so sorry. It's just, that's the positive thing that we can give if we just take accountability. Because I watched a movie, again, I learn a lot from movies, and I watched this Hindi movie where in India, America and Europe have taken so much of their garbage and dumped it on them in the back villages, and then their kids are born with 3 legs and diseases and everything, and accountability is laid where? We should not be doing that, things like that. I'm just saying. Look it up and you'll see what I mean.
Let me ask everybody a question here real quick. Did you guys enjoy this panel? Yes or yes? Mr. Let me recount your great names. Here's my Reverend Starr. Thank you very much for coming out to appreciate your life.